Hello and welcome to another episode of Attacking Third, a CBS Sports soccer podcast. I'm Sandra Herrera, CBS Sports leading NWSL writer, joined today by my colleague and co-host, NWSL analyst and play-by-play announcer, Lisa Roman. Lisa, we got a lot to get through today. We have NWSL weekend action recap going on. We got to get through 5 games. A quick reminder to all of our listeners that you can follow us on Attacking Third at Twitter. And then you can go ahead and find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere you find your shows. So go ahead and find us, leave us a rating and review. We would greatly, greatly appreciate it. But the weekend's over. Lisa, how you feeling?
I'm feeling really good, Sandra. This was packed weekend, lots of games. I wasn't calling any this weekend, which is a nice little break, but I got to watch the games with some former players that I played with, some of my former teammates, some former NWSL-ites. I don't know, former retired players. So that's really fun. Just trying to create the acronyms for the NWSL players, NWSL-ites. I like it.
We're very creative. We're very on the fly. We're very snappy on Attacking Third. I'm into it. Maybe we'll see if it sticks. Who knows?
Probably not, though. Probably not. Sandra, how was your weekend?
Listen, I'm eager to talk about these games, but my weekend was also good. I got to tell you, I don't blame you for taking in some games with some NWSL-ites, as you just mentioned. I'm trying to help you make it stick.
Thank you.
But I mean, we came off of a very busy stretch of almost 30 days there and covering the Olympics, and it was a wild ride, and we had so many wonderful people joining us along for that wild ride, and it's nice to settle back into NWSL, even though we didn't really say goodbye to it. We were doing all kinds of NWSL stuff alongside Olympic coverage, but it's nice. Like it's home. It's always NWSL is always going to feel like home, so it's nice to just sort of settle in.
A little bit more of a routine than we have been used to the last couple of weeks.
Absolutely, because we launched this and we're very proud of it, and everyone has been so like overwhelming with their support of the show and everything. But it definitely launched like right in time for the Olympics, so we definitely were like, oh, we'll be here tri-weekly and 3 times a week, and then we were just bombarding everybody with the content. So now it's gonna hopefully kind of trickle out for everyone, and maybe they could keep up with our schedule that we initially promised. So starting with this, I mean, I'm looking forward to chatting up these games, recapping them for everybody. We've got 5 games to get through, Lisa. It was a triple header taking place on Saturday for NWSL action. A lot of good stuff there in the mix. I mean, kicking things off, we had New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC versus North Carolina Courage. The Courage, I think in our preview, if I remember correctly, Lisa, we're talking about how the Courage are going on the road over to Gotham and seeing if they can maybe snap or shake themselves out of a little bit of a slump. It was definitely a winless streak that they had going on. Just couldn't really turn some of those close results into a win. And yet here they were going on the road, going away, going up against, quite frankly, the best defense in the league, right, on their home turf. And they end up walking away with a win in this one, 1-0 to North Carolina on a great goal from Meredith Speck. What did you think of this match, and what do we think this means maybe moving forward for North Carolina in the second half of the season?
This was a huge game for North Carolina. Gotham was on an 8-game unbeaten streak, and that was snapped by this Courage game, which is really huge for North Carolina, especially because they were in a bit of a rut over the last few weeks. Lots of changes happening there with players and personnel, and they're starting to get into it. Meredith Speck, you mentioned, she got the goal for the Courage. She also had an assist last week for the Courage. So hey, Meredith Speck, welcome. Thank you for showing your colors. This is fun. I love when players can find their groove and can start clicking consistently. So to have the assist last week, now she's got a goal, and the consistency is really huge, especially as this regular season winds down. These teams need to be consistent week in and week out to secure those 3 points. And North Carolina, they were back to their winning ways because they went back to how they traditionally like to play and how they succeed at playing. Getting the ball wide, using their outside backs, Merritt Mathias, Carson Pickett, to really push up the flanks of the field and send crosses crosses in. That's what they do well, and that's really what works out for them. Amy Rodriguez, still quiet. She's making waves, though, for North Carolina, but she's still quiet, still searching for her goal in a Courage jersey. But I like her partnership with Jess McDonald. Amy Rodriguez and Jess McDonald, they have something going there for them. They do.
Yeah.
It's coming along. I do think it is.
It was nice to see it, like, to get a look at that, because that's the other angle for this Courage team, is like they were dealing, like every other team, they were dealing with huge players, like missing such key figures on the pitch in their starting 11 to the Olympics, but then also kind of having to go through some injuries, kind of having to deal with some COVID related things. And we didn't really get to see that. So it was really nice to see these two kind of veteran-esque type players, and Rodriguez and McDonald kind of getting a chance to finally get some time together. And I think, like, honestly, like Meredith Speth getting that goal, uh, outside of maybe looking at somebody like a striker like McDonald or Rodriguez, is kind of like fulfilling. Like, you're always looking for that player who's maybe going to score the goal in kind of a rough streak like that. That's going to like kind of lift up the team a little bit. And like Meredith Speck is like, over the last couple of weeks, has been doing some cool stuff for the Courage, picking up the assist last week and then coming in this week and then getting the goal.
Yeah, I mean, why not her? Why isn't she the one to step up? So I do like to see that. And for Gotham, they were put on their heels a little bit from this North Carolina team. Of course, Caprice Idasco, man, she's so good.
So
She's
good.
so fun to watch. She just dominates the flank. She continues to be such a threat. The entire offense runs through her when she gets up the field and she sends those crosses in. She just continues to be fantastic and rise above every single week. But North Carolina outplayed them throughout this one. And yeah, it is nice to see Speck getting on the board, knocking some digits down there for the score sheet. I like that.
Yeah, for sure. Big win, narrow win, 1-0 for Courage, but huge when it comes to standings and stuff like that right now, as all these teams sort of look ahead to this second half of the season, and standing still kind of narrow. So good on the Courage for kind of picking those things up, and a really nice win to kind of pick up as eventually more and more players are kind of showing their way back into the league from Olympic duty. But looking ahead to the second match of this triple header, we had Washington Spirit hosting Portland Thorns FC. We had this one circled, Lisa. I remember when we were going through this preview, we were like, man, this might be a game for people to kind of keep their eye on, because we have the Portland Thorns, who are in first place, kind of having this very, very, not kind of, absolutely having this impressive run during
Don't
this
play it
Olympic
down,
stretch of
Sandra.
games. Yeah, let me
Don't
not play that down.
downplay this.
That's absolutely disrespectful on my part. Jeez.
I'll call you out. Don't worry.
Yeah, we have a first place Portland Thorns team that have been in first forever, and did so and really kind of excelled in that first place category over the course of this Olympic stretch, but on the road to a Spirit side that were maybe looking for a little bit of a bounce back. So we kind of set the table a little bit for this match, and we were like, man, maybe we're going to see, a very kind of competitive match. So it wasn't a high scoring match. Portland ended up taking this one on the road 1-0. But there was a lot of fun stuff happening in between the lines in this pitch. Lisa, what were your takeaways from this one?
Oh, we have to start with the starting lineups. Huge shout out to Olivia Moultrie. She got her first start for the Portland Thorns, the youngest player to get a start in the NWSL. I mean, it's a huge accomplishment, Sandra. Like, we got to give her a huge shout out.
Yep.
And on a team that's, like we talked about, leading this league. They're staying at the top of the table. So for her to get that start in that kind of position just shows her skill and her commitment and her dedication and her ability to be growing constantly over this time. So to get those game minutes against a team like Washington is really big, because Washington puts up a good fight. This was the first meeting between these two teams for this 2021 season. And remember, heading into this one, Portland at the top of the table, 5 points ahead of the number 2 at the time, Gotham, going into this weekend. So Portland didn't really have too much to lose in the sense of their starting or their number 1 spot in the table. However, at this point in the season, you can't drop 2 points. You can't drop 3 points, especially with a loss. And now Portland, their last 5 games, they've scored 7 goals, bunch of clean sheets for them. I mean, 5 clean sheets in their last 8 games after this one, which is so big for them. But there was a lot of missed goals in this
Yeah.
game. There were. I'm
Yeah.
gonna point it out. There were so many bright spots, but I'm gonna start with all of this that happened. Olivia Moultrie, yeah, she got the start. Great job for her. She ended up with an assist in this one. First 5 minutes, she gets a shot off, and it
Oh, man.
ricochets off the post. Oh, Sandra, it gave me chills watching that. I was like, if this is what we get from Olivia Moultrie 5 minutes into this match,
The post had a day
yeah.
in this match, honestly. If we gave all that shine and attention to own goal, we
Yes.
absolutely have to give credit to post.
That's exactly right. I mean, this one from Olivia Moultrie was really well struck. It was a really nice job. And then Takarada for Washington, she nailed one off the crossbar. This is what you're talking about, Sandra. But Portland overall putting a lot of high pressure on Washington and their spirit. And Washington made some mistakes in their back line. Sophia Smith picking up the ball. Should have had a goal, doesn't there? It's so
Yeah.
unlike her. We don't see that very much. It was right before halftime, I believe. Smith picks off a pass from Washington Spirit. Spirit just trying to build out, and Angela Salem stepping up a lot. Olivia Moultrie stepping up on this play to put that high pressure on that Portland had throughout the entire game. Mostly the first half, though, is really where they put on all that pressure. And Sophia Smith picks it up. She dribbles towards the goal. I maybe cursed her from my own home, and I was like, oh yeah, she's going to score this one, knocks this one down. She doesn't.
Oh, man.
That was her chance, and we don't see her miss that very much, which is lucky for Washington, honestly, to have Sophia Smith miss that shot.
Yeah, you know what? And it's been a little bit of a trend. I mean, yeah, we can compliment a player like Smith and say like she doesn't typically miss those, but I think like maybe the Thorns as a whole have definitely, there's a lot of footage for them to look back during this Olympic stretch and sort of say like, hey, we probably should have had way more than one or two goals, like an X game, Y game, or Z game. You know what I mean? They have definitely, they're that high pressing attacking team that people are sort of already familiar with seeing week in and week out, and they're like kind of padding that totals, but then you see the scoreline and you're like, oh wow, like only one of those actually
I know. And
counted.
another player that's watching this game film from this match and shaking her head, Trinity Rodman.
Oh, man.
It was Ashley Sanchez. It was early in this first half of this game. She picks off a pass from Portland trying to build out of the back. That was the fun thing. Both these teams really like to build out with high press against them. And there are times when if you can capitalize on those moments where the ball comes in and it's off the mark. And that's what Sanchez did here. She was able to pick off this pass, and Portland was immediately out of defensive shape because they were looking to go in transition. Trinity Rodman wide open on the other side of the field. Sanchez plays her a great ball through, and Trinity Rodman just took her sweet old time. And so Kristen Westphal was able to slide in there for Portland, who she got the first start for Portland today, one of her first starts. So that was huge for her, making an incredible sliding save on this Trinity Rodman shot that, frankly, it should have been a goal. It was almost similar to the setup of Sophia Smith's. Two players that know how to score, know how to find the back of the net that couldn't, and they just didn't on these shots that they should have put away when it's just them against a goalkeeper and they slow down too much. You have to go quick in those moments and not take them for granted.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even you look at the scoreline and maybe you look at it and you're like, oh, like what did I really miss? But I love those very intense, highly competitive matches that we get to see in NWSL, like those matches that you can point to and say like, you know, that feed the narrative of the fact that this is one of the most competitive leagues in the world, right? And this is one of those games for me, I think, like over the weekend where we can sort of look at and kind of pinpoint and say like, this is what happens, you know, in this league kind of week in and week out. And it ended up going in the favor of the Thorns, where it ended up walking away with another win under their belt to add and, you know, to give some more padding to that first place standing that they've got in the table right now. And then sort of kind of putting a feather in the cap of this Olympic stretch of games. And that's such a testament to, yes, of course, all of the players who have been putting in these performances week in and week out for this team during this time. But, you know, it's also a testament to the coaching staff, Mark Parsons, and what they've been building over time with the Thorns, you know, really in preparation for this window a bit, you know, coming out of that 2019 season and kind of having a not so much of a fire sale, but definitely saying some goodbyes and adios and everything else to certain players in the offseason. It almost kind of felt like a real world turnover of things. And sometimes when that happens and you lose so many players, you kind of wonder what's next, right? But talk about a quick turnaround, especially coming off of what 2020 ended up playing out to be for so many clubs and so many teams across the league in light of the pandemic. That here they are in 2021 in the midst of a regular season, not skipping a beat. You
No.
know, it's so impressive.
And Mark Parsons has such an issue on his hand, a great problem to have now with all these Olympians
Yeah,
returning from Tokyo. He has a star team that's filled the shoes seamlessly of the players that were gone over this Olympic stretch, and now they're back. I think the competition at training is just going to be phenomenal because the players that have earned their starts and earned a lot of minutes for this Thorns team over the last few weeks are going to want to continue to start. And Sandra, we just have to shine some light on the goal for the Portland Thorns because it was Olivia Moultrie. She had the assist, ball wide on the flank. Her cross in was stunning.
yeah,
If this is the future of Olivia Moultrie in the NWSL,
it's bright.
yes,
It's
I'm
bright.
here for it. And she connects with Simone Charlie, who finds the ball on her head and then sails it towards the back of the net, which is Simone Charlie's her gift to the world, is heading the ball, which is something that she wasn't so great at last year, really worked on in the offseason. And man, it's come to fruition this season because this goal was beautiful from the way it was crossed in to how it was headed and everything before and after it. So I did want to shine some light on the beautiful goal that we did see from this Thorns team.
Delightful. And I'm sure there will be more, as like we said, a lot of their Olympic players start returning from international duty. Last one of this Saturday triple header, it was over before it really even began. Lisa, we had OL Reign taking on Houston Dash. Folks, the scoreline I think mostly really does say it all. When you look at it, it's 5-1, but when you look a little bit closer, Houston did not actually score their goal. It was an own goal that was credited to OL Reign defender Alana Cook. So really, OL Reign getting all of the goals in this one. Quite frankly, some real classic NWSL after dark energy in this one. Just chaotic. OL Reign on the front foot from the opening whistle. Let's just run them down. Let's just run them
Yeah.
down. So Bethany Balser in the 6th minute, assisted by Jessica Fishlock. Sophia Huerta in the 19th minute, assisted by Eugenie Le Sommer. An own goal for the Dash in the 30th minute. Courtesy of Alana Cook. You have Eugenie Le Sommer with another goal for OL Reign in the 35th minute. Jessica Fishlock with a banger. But that's the one I want to highlight for sure. In the 42nd minute, assisted by Le Sommer, and then Bethany Balser again in the 46th minute with an assist from Jess Fishlock. I mean, there's a trend here. There's a theme. Balser, Huerta, Le Sommer,
Listeners,
Fishlock.
hold on, Sandra, I don't mean to cut you off there, but if you're listening to this podcast and you didn't get a chance to watch this game and you were
Oh
paying
my God.
attention to the minutes that Sandra was reading off of these goals, they were all in the first
Yes,
half.
in the first half. You literally just have to watch like 45 minutes of this game. It's
You'll see everything you need to see. It's amazing.
yeah, for sure. It was just the chaotic energy that everybody wanted for their Saturday night, quite frankly. And yeah, those 4 names that I just kind of rattled out, I mean, huge games for these players and OL Reign. And honestly, these particular players just kind of really having their say and kind of dragging OL Reign back to a place where they always wanted to find themselves, which is really in the conversation of one of these playoff spots, as we look ahead into the second half of the season. But just quite a game when you're looking at the scoreline.
This game was phenomenal. Like you mentioned, just watch the first 45 minutes, guys. If you're looking for something to do during your workday, throw it on and you'll be highly entertained. It was fun. And Bethany Balser, she gets a brace in this game. Really good goals from her. And Le Sommer, her goal as well. I know you highlighted Jess Fishlock's, which yes, incredible banger. But Liz Omer, she gets an original header on the ball as it's crossed into the box. It's actually saved. Lindsay Harris for Houston gets her hands on it and she saves it, but she bats it down in front of the box. And Houston defenders are there, but no one really steps to it except Liz Omer. She gets her own follow-up. The veteran knows how to play and she understands the grit and the determination to get the ball in the back of the net, because she did that. And Bethany Balser, she gets a brace in this game, 2 goals, which takes her to the top of the Golden Boot chart, the leadership score, alongside Ashley Hatch and Sydney Leroux, but only for like 24 hours. We'll get to that, of course, but this game was fun. And Houston, their one goal that they did get that ended up being the own goal. I think that Shea Groom did provide pressure on that one when all these own goals are happening. And I try to just say like, hey, the offense did something. I mean, they did.
Own goals happen for a reason.
They do happen for a reason. And Shea Groom was putting a lot of pressure on. At times she looked like a chicken with her head cut off in this game, just running around trying to settle down the game for her side and for this team in orange. But she did create this own goal running towards the defender who's facing their own goal in Alana Cook, and it happens. So a nice job to Shea Groom, who's able to create something out of really not much that Houston had throughout this game.
Absolutely. OL Reign, racking them in, getting it done. It's very impressive. They extend their win streak to 3. Houston Dash, unfortunately, continue their streak of never winning away to the Reign. That also continues. So we'll see what happens. I don't believe it's the last time that these two teams are going to meet in the regular season. So we'll see what happens moving forward. But OL Reign definitely looking like a team that has finally got some things figured out. I know there was a lot of conversation, a lot of chatter about, if this team was going to be able to really find themselves playing as sort of a cohesive unit with so many pieces coming, another team with so many pieces coming in and out, and new additions in these players on loan with the team in Marozen or Les Somer or Buadi. And we're starting to see all of that kind of come together. So it's going to be a very entertaining team to watch down the stretch of this second half of the season. But that was it for Saturday. That wrapped up the triple header. We've got a double header to close out the recap of games on Sunday. But first, a hydration break, and then we will be back to recap those 2 games. Cheers. Sunday. What a day. 2 games closing out NWSL action. Kicking things off. Lisa, we touted this game as a battle of 2 bottom table teams going head to head. And while there is a ton of separation between them in terms of points, because that's true, there was a huge gap between them in terms of the points. They still sat 9-10. So there's always a chance for those type of games to have a little bit of extra chaotic energy, perhaps. And we saw really a tale of 2 halves, I think, in this one. Interesting play between the 2 sides, kind of playing out to 1-1 draw, and then Racing Louisville turning things on and walking away with the win in this one. End up taking it 3-1 at home against Kansas City. What were some of your main takeaways from these 2 teams, Lisa?
Sandra, like you mentioned, I wanted to see Kansas City on top. I did. I wanted them to get a win.
We both did.
I know.
In the preview, we were like, this could be it. This could be the one. And it was not.
We put all our eggs in their basket. We really did. I was rooting for them, and they're not my team. I was rooting for them. I wanted them to see it. However, Louisville gave a great game in this one. Racing came out and they said, hey, we're at the bottom, but there's separation, and we're going to show you why there's big separation in this point gap. I will say it was 1-1 at half. Kansas City got a goal right before halftime. This was actually like a little crazy how it all came about. There was 5 minutes added on at the end of the first half. In the 8th minute of added time, Kansas City is able to get that goal. Darian Jenkins, she gets this one, but that's like, it just goes to show for Kansas City, you can never give up. Play till the very last whistle. Any team, any player that's playing, you go until the very last whistle because time can continue to tick. And I think for Louisville in those moments, they were just waiting for the whistle to come. They were thinking they were riding into this halftime up a goal, but Kansas City responding. But Savannah McCaskill, she had a really good game for Racing Louisville. She got 2 assists in this game. Really nice job by her. She continues to be the playmaker for them. And sometimes she gets put under a lot of pressure because she takes the team on her back and she's the one that drives the attack forward, and she's the one that has to connect those passes and break those lines of opponents. And that can be really tricky for her as someone who is also sitting back and playing that such a defensive role to break up opponents' transitional play. And I think today she really found the seams of the game where she could fit into and play on both sides of the ball. And of course, attackingly, she contributed to the goals, which is huge for her. This game was good for Louisville. Kansas City still making defensive mistakes that need to be cleaned up. And they got to learn. They have to learn sometimes, Sandra.
You know what? It's interesting watching this Kansas City team moving forward in this second half of the season. Because I liked what we saw out of them in terms of their buildup and some of their very interesting interlinking attacking play. And it's like one component of the game, right? It's just one. It's just like one component of the game that looked sufficient, right? It looked like a good performance that would eventually translate into goals and who knows, possibly a win, but it just didn't happen. And like getting that very early goal in the second half, from Darian Jenkins, a player who has definitely been working her way back from certain things, whether it's been around the league, going from team to team. So it's like those type of things are like, yes, like those are very motivating things for a team. But oh my God, to just sort of concede so quickly after that. You're talking about just a minute later. And I mean, I'm not mad about it because I've gone on record about someone being so excited to have Nadia Nadim back in the league. And you're talking about just like a full, not like a minute later, just getting the go-ahead goal for Louisville after conceding so quickly to start off the second half. And again, like you shouted out, McCaskill setting that up. So just having that quick turnaround, maybe for a team like Kansas City, maybe a moment like that could possibly be deflating, but they didn't look like that necessarily, despite kind of conceding that very quick equalizing and then conceding that very, very quick go-ahead goal. There was a lot of fun just sort of back and forth between the two teams, but Louisville coming away with it. And I love that they iced it with Shayna Matthews. Like that's the other thing for me, I think, coming out of this particular game. I'm like, God, we got to see like so many cool things happen. There were cool things that happened in this game. And I love to point out all the fun and cool things because soccer should be fun and cool and not like uptight and tense. It should be cool and fun. So yeah, like seeing Darian Jenkins get her first goal and then Nadia Nadim, like, having her statement. And then Shayna Matthews, like a player that have made her way back from pregnancy, a player that Louisville really targeted, kind of picked up off of waivers and said, hey, you're going to let this player go on the waiver, we're going to pick her up and have her be part of our team and what we're trying to build here in Louisville. So I love that the mom got a goal at the end of this game in the 86 minutes to just sort of put a nice little bow on it.
Yes, it was a good goal. And for Louisville too, to get 3 on the board, that's huge. And I don't know, it gives confidence to the team. And like you mentioned, Sheena Matthews, she was fresh off the bench when this goal happened. And it was a really big mistake by Kansas City. It was a throw-in. It was a square ball throw-in and didn't go at all to where it was supposed to go to the players. And Matthews, fresh off the bench, she picks it up and she walks it into the back of the net. Beautiful job by her. She does sidestep the goalkeeper, which isn't always easy to do when they can use their hands and lay out. But she didn't take any chances on kicking it, passing it, shooting it. She decides to walk it into the back of the net. Smart move by her. Celebration was exciting, like you mentioned. Like, this was a big goal for her and a big goal for her confidence. And I love to see that.
Yeah, for sure. Let's close it out. Last one of Sunday, we've got Chicago Red Stars hosting Orlando Pride. Two teams, another set of teams meeting for the first time in this regular season. It's hard to imagine that we're in this second half of the season and there's a couple teams that are still meeting for the first time in 2021. But fun fact for these two teams in particular, this was actually their first meeting since 2019. Just circumstance, again, the ongoing pandemic has just not allowed these two teams to go head to head since 2019. They were unable to face off against each other during the Challenge Cup, and then obviously with fall series being in different areas with teams in certain pods, and then this 2021 Challenge Cup divided up into East and Western pods. Just the opportunity didn't present itself again. So the last time these two teams met, they were two completely sort of different teams, but here they were, both at SeatGeek, and played out to a 2-0 win in favor of Orlando Pride, who ended. We started this podcast episode with some peculiar streaks, and then here comes Orlando Pride with one of their own. North Carolina Courage ending a winless streak, and now Orlando Pride doing the same thing in the same weekend against Chicago. They had a 6-game winless streak going on, and they slayed that demon against Chicago Red Stars 2-0. Goals from Jody Taylor and Sydney LaRue. A lot of questionable moments, I think, for the teams. If you're looking at this and you're looking at maybe some of the injuries that occurred in this match, maybe some of the yellows that were issued. A lot of stuff in between the lines that people maybe aren't happy about, which isn't brand new, unfortunately, when talking about or covering some of these games. But I think we need to highlight a particular player in this game, and it's Sydney LaRue. Lisa.
Whew. Sydney LaRue. I mentioned it when we talked about OL Reign. Bethany Balcer. She was at the top of the scoring leaderboard for a few hours there, and Sydney LaRue notching a goal in this game. This is fun. This is fun to see from her. It came at the very end of the game, but it didn't matter. She is finding her form, and you know that she's always going to turn it on and continue to do that. And Orlando was in a bit of a rut, a scoring rut offensively over the last few weeks. Winless in their last 7. Their confidence in their attack just wasn't there fully. There were games where it looked like Sydney LaRue had everything. She was doing it all for them. And then in moments like this game against Chicago, it becomes more of a team effort. And the momentum into this one is really, really huge for her. But Sydney LaRue, she's good and she's fun to see. And we have to give a shout out to Jody Taylor too. The newcomers in this league, Sandra, Les Sommer, Nadia Nadim, and Taylor for Orlando, they're doing what they were brought in to do, and that is score goals. For Taylor, the English international, she's been with the club for about a month, I believe, and she was brought in to be a goal scorer, and that's exactly what she did. A quick over-the-top ball into the run of Taylor. She had 3 Chicago defenders on her, or closing in around her, not necessarily tight enough to stop her, but she's just so good that it didn't even matter, and she ends up with the goal. And I think we have to give a shout out to Ali Krieger. 2 assists.
Great assist.
In 2 games. I mean, that's pretty good from a defensive back.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it came at a great time.
Yeah.
To be completely honest. I mean, you're talking about being on the road, hot day in Chicago, for sure, if I do say so from a personal experience. Warm day on Sunday. Hydration breaks had to happen in that one. So
they don't just happen with attacking third; they happen all over the field too.
All over the field and all over the pitch in NWSL. We just simply participate. But up until that point, Chicago really kind of executing their game plan up until that goal. Quite frankly, just getting a lot of good looks in the opposition's half, kind of having some dangerous moments there in the final third. But again, like what we see sometimes throughout this league, even though you're looking like this, you're creating this very dynamic play, or like this interlinking combination play, and not getting the goals, and then you're just all of a sudden you pay for those missed opportunities. And that's kind of what ended up happening in this one. Orlando just doing a very good job of being able to kind of sustain this pressure from Chicago. And then the two savvy veterans linking up for the opening breakthrough goal for Orlando with Krieger with this great ball over the top. And then Taylor being able to just go ahead and just instinctually put a foot on the ball. Like, she really didn't take too many touches once she received this ball. It was just in the back of the net before I think Chicago even realized how these two players were in particular were linking up. So they carried the 1-0 lead into halftime, and then you had Sydney Leroux putting it on ice in the 89th minute.
Yeah, I mean, really great stuff. And head coach for Orlando Pride, Becky Burley, getting her first win with this squad and this club, which is really huge for her. Sandra, we have to pick your brain because it's a Chicago game. Can you give us any insight on the injuries that happened or anything that's going on with there and the players that left the field during this game?
Yeah, two really unfortunate substitutions occurring in the match with really two key players in Morgan Gautrat and Danny Coloprico coming off of the pitch, just sort of, quite frankly, just poor tackles. You got to call them like you see them on the replays. They were just not good tackles, just really unfortunate. And just a bit of physical play at that point, because sometimes even though you have a lead, right, and then maybe the other team, even though you're still trying to carry that lead, the other team could be providing some pressure and some looks that maybe you're trying to do your best to disrupt, and you disrupt them real good, so much to the point where maybe you perform a questionable tackle or a questionable foul. And there was a lot of back and forth in terms of what was going on or what wasn't going on the pitch. Yellows being issued to the coaching sideline, even though their particular players were the ones that were being carried off. So yeah, just unfortunate scenes towards the end of the game with somebody like Morgan Gautrat with a wrapped knee and crutches. Rory Dames, making a little bit of a quip in the post game, saying that he's retiring from talking about refereeing and officiating in this league, implying that he's been talking about it for a long time, and that's not just this season. I've covered Rory Dames for a very, very long time in this league. It's not something that is a new topic of conversation when it comes to the officiating in the league. But he did confirm that there would probably be an MRI for both of the players. For Gautrat specifically, it would be on the right knee. And that's all he could really comment on that for now. So who knows? Maybe you and I, Lisa, will have additional updates, in one of our further episodes. But as of now, that's where that stands. And it's just real unfortunate. You just never want a game to get out of control like that, and that kind of starts and ends with the officiating, and that probably is what Dames is alluding to when he says what he says in the post games. And it's just really unfortunate that you look at a game like that and you kind of wonder and assume automatically that the league's disciplinary committee will come into play, and that's very unfortunate because they've come into play a lot during this season.
And you hate to see a game determined by factors that aren't the players and the goal scoring opportunities and things like that when it does come down to officiating and calls that are or are not made. It's a topic of conversation, Sandra, and we'll keep hitting you guys with all the info that we have and our takes on it. And I'm sure there'll be more information to come throughout this week as they take a look at it and the league looks at it again and everything that happened. I mean, it's a shame. And those poor players, it's such a shame, especially Chicago. This is now their third midfielder this year with an injury in that middle of the park. Remember Julie Ertz very, very early on.
First game of the season.
Back after this Olympic stretch that she dominated. She's clearly back, but it's sad. You hate to see that.
Yeah, it's tough. It's especially for a player like Gautrat, who just, just was named to the NWSL Team of the Month, and kind of coming off of like a really big month with the Red Stars where they went like on a 3-game, win streak of their own, and has really just kind of quietly had like a really strong MVP like season for the Red Stars in their midfield. because they have a lot of midfield rotation. They have a lot of midfielders, period, on the Chicago Red Stars. But even within the rotation, like Morgan Gautrat has kind of been that constant. She's been like the one steady factor. So it's going to be disruptive no matter what period of time she finds herself out of. But we'll keep everybody updated as updates roll out. But as for now, the second half of the season is already shaking up to be a real banger, Lisa. Let's take a look at these standings to sort of close out the episode. We've got a number of points still separating teams from first place to sixth place, which are all of the playoff positions. It's about 9 points clearing from 1 to 6. And of course, in first place, as they have been for weeks now, Portland Thorns in first with 28 points, North Carolina Courage in second place with 21 points, Gotham FC in third place with 20 points. Orlando Pride back in the mix in fourth place with 20 points. Chicago Red Stars in fifth with 20 points. And All Rain have broken the plane at sixth place with 19 points. Washington Spirit in seventh place with 18 points. Houston Dash in eighth place. And Racing Louisville FC with 14 points in ninth place. And Kansas City NWSL in 10th place with 4 points. So it's going to be a ride, Lisa, this second half.
It is. And Portland continuing to separate themselves. I mean, they had 28 points. North Carolina has 21 sitting at number 2. That separation is going to be huge as this regular season winds down, and every single point matters. And if you can take points off teams, that is really big. And Portland did that. They did that against Washington this week. And that's all it comes down to. Sandra, I'm excited for what's to come.
It's going to be good. And we're going to be here to cover it all. We've got more NWSL games happening. We've got mini tournaments happening within this NWSL season that are going to be coming up. We'll have more information on that coming through, but I can't wait to get into all of it. I just want to thank everybody for listening. A quick reminder to you all to follow us on Twitter at Attacking Third. I need to let you know that we are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere you listen to all your shows. We're also available as video, so please subscribe to us on YouTube. Just visit youtube.com/Attacking Third. And we will be back on Wednesday with more NWSL news and updates for you all. So for Sandra Herrera and Lisa Roman, this was Attacking Third.